Well, hey, everybody. Getting ready to record episode 109, or no, 209 of Mike in the Midwest. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 209 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find me on the socials at Be Our Guest Mike. But you can find me in the clubhouse. Again, you can find the clubhouse at beourguestpodcast.com/clubhouse or /Discord, whichever one you like. But it is the place to be as more and more folks are climbing up the tree and hanging out in our virtual clubhouse, which is so much fun because it has its little branches. Think of it as, it's like a tree house, right? With little rooms throughout. It's like the Swiss Family tree house in Adventureland, but there's different rooms. If you like sports, you go up that limb and hang out in the sports bar over there, which is that channel. If you like to talk about strategies with lightning lanes, Cody has you covered right there. He's got the Mizzou logo, which I like, MIZ. So does Dennis. And he's talking you all through the latest and greatest strategies. This morning, I got up and I did my walk and I came in and I had my breakfast burrito. And I was looking about how he's talking about how you got to get that first lightning lane and you got to kind of burn it immediately. And that takes off all your restrictions and then you're clear to go. So he's given the latest and greatest strategies on using your lightning lane. So go into the theme parks channel and he's got you covered. And we got lots of folks down at Walt Disney World right now who are using the new system. So if you're headed to Walt Disney World here in the next little bit, that's the place to go to get the latest and greatest. I mean, this is the information that is up to the minute, folks that are down there. We had Julie from Scotland. She is updating in our live from the Disney Destinations channel. We have a channel that's just dedicated to folks who are at a Disney destination, whether you're on a cruise, Walt Disney World, Disneyland. If you are there, we turn that channel over to you. Post pictures live during your trip, live posts. It's like a live vlog, posting of your vacation. It was great yesterday. Yesterday was one of the best things because it was like a mental exercise. Julie came all the way from Scotland with her family. Like a few weeks ago, we didn't know if she was going to make this trip. I was worried for her. I was like, oh, I hope Julie gets to come because she was having some maybe not things with this trip. She got to come. So I was excited for Julie. She gets there. She's at Caribbean Beach. And yesterday she posts, and this is so something that would happen to me. And by the way, I love how we just jump into Mike in the Midwest. I hope you're all doing well, by the way. This is just me kind of talking out loud into the microphone for 30 minutes and saying thank you for being a patron and supporting the Be Our Guest podcast. Just a little bonus stuff here on a Sunday morning. I'm glad that we're here together. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Anyway, Julie jumps into the Discord yesterday. If you haven't seen this was epic. She forgot a hairbrush. And we all forget something, right? When we go to Walt Disney World or on a cruise, like you always forget something that you need. And so she's like, where can I get a hairbrush at Walt Disney World, to brush your hair? And so she had gone to a couple places. I think she'd gone to I think she was at the Magic Kingdom this day. She'd gone to the Emporium, couldn't find a hairbrush there. She'd gone a couple of places, I think like a nearby resort, couldn't find a hairbrush there. So then she goes to the Discord, right to the clubhouse. Where can I find a hairbrush? And so we're getting all these great suggestions, like go to a DVC resort because DVC resorts are more going to be apt to have in their stores things that are more for folks that are staying long term. Because think about a DVC resort, they have more like groceries because people have kitchenettes, and full on kitchens at the DVC resorts. So they're going to be more apt to have things like, like your contact solutions, maybe like a hairbrush, things that you're likely to have to stay longer. So I thought that was a great suggestion. So we're getting all these, bibbity bobbity boutique, right? Because they do hairdos. I'm like, that's a great idea. It might be a Cinderella brush, but who cares at this point, right? You need a brush. It doesn't matter. So we finally she found a brush at the end of the day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was like, and it was like a mental exercise. I'm like, okay, if I needed a brush, where in the world, and literally where in the world, Walt Disney World, would I find a hairbrush? I'm trying to think like, okay, I was thinking World Showcase and I'm thinking, okay, where, like, would it be Germany? Would it be England? Like where, like Rapunzel? I mean, I was really thinking, and then it totally came to me. But it didn't come to me till after Julie had posted this, and I'm like, "Of course." She found it, and I'll mispronounce it. Sorry, Masayo. The Mitsukashi store in Japan, because it's a department store. And by the way, that store has everything. So she found a great brush there, and the problem was solved. She could brush her hair, looking good. I'm sure she looked good before that. Also, I love the, and I don't have it pulled up because it dings and stuff when you have it open, and we have so many people posting all the time. It always dings. But somebody posted, I think it was Trisha actually, just go ride a bunch of roller coasters and your hair will be wild and it'll be okay. I love that solution as well because you're at Walt Disney World. Go over to Animal Kingdom and ride Cali River Rapids. Just embrace it. Get wet and or ride Expedition Everest and just go with the windswept look. I drive a Jeep Wrangler with no top, no doors. I mean, I don't have any hair, but if I was a lady, that's what my strategy would have been if I didn't have a brush. But Julie wants to look good for all the photos, I'd imagine. So she got over to Japan. But I mean, that's what the clubhouse is. We all rallied together. We had like 20 suggestions, and it was a challenge, and it was fun. And then Julie posted the pic right there in the live channel, like the live from Walt Disney World, live from Disney Destinations channel, posted the picture of the brush in the Japan store, just like Mufasa holding up Simba on Pride Rock. Oh, she had found a brush and the world's problems had been solved. If only it was that easy, right? I mean, it's like the Olympics right now. Everybody's coming together in the spirit of sportsmanship, and you see, people shaking hands over a badminton net. I mean, it's great. Like people can get along. We see people it's how the world should be. Right now in the studio, I'll be honest, I have the big TV right across the monitors from me as I do this show, and I always have it on mute. Usually it's on football. It's not football season right now. I always try to find the most obscure sports to watch in the Olympics because I find the more obscure the sport, the more pure the athletes tend to be in their sportsmanship. And this morning, as I got up and I finished my walk, the girls were still sleeping. Pam was still sleeping. Mallory was still sleeping. I'd already had my breakfast burrito. I'd already gone through my first round of emails, still sleeping because I was going to take the dog for a walk, but I wait for Pam to do that on Sunday mornings. And so I flipped on NBC. We don't have Peacock. I don't think. I don't know. I got a question about that because I'm watching something. I think it's on Peacock right now, but I don't think we have Peacock, but it says it's on Peacock anyway. So I'm just flipping through, and on my Roku TV, I flip on, and it's badminton, and I'm like, badminton is a very obscure sport, and I'm getting badminton on 3 different boxes on my TV. No commentary, just the raw sounds from the arenas. It was like mixed doubles on one box, women's doubles on one, and then like singles with guys on one. And I mean, it was intense. And so I'm watching it for like an hour. I'll be honest, I dozed off for just a second. Pam comes out, she wakes up, comes out, and she's like, sits down. You're watching badminton, huh? I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm like, have you seen this? She's like, so she sits down, she gets kind of drawn into it for a couple minutes while she's having her crackers and Pepsi there before we get ready to go for a walk. And finally she says to me, she says, isn't it pretty amazing that badminton is an Olympic sport? Like we grew up playing this in our yard. Like we bought badminton sets at Venture or Target or Kmart, for like $12. You buy that with like your Jart set and your, whatever your volley. We had the, volleyball sets we'd buy. It would kind of be like a 5-in-1 set. And this is an Olympic sport. I'm like, Pam, watch this. This is not an Olympic sport. I mean, I was a PE major for a while in college, and we had to learn how to play all those games, that's why I was a PE major. I love this stuff. I took bowling 3 semesters. See, I figured out college. But I mean, the athleticism of these athletes, that shuttlecock is going so fast. It's unbelievable. Like I can't. I didn't hear it on TV. I mean, I think I'm going deaf because I always have headphones on, but the thing has to be just whistling because they are smoking it. But there's so much strategy in it too, especially in doubles, that I love watching a sport like badminton at its highest level. So right now I have on water polo, Italy versus the United States in the men's. And these athletes, holy cow, like I can barely swim. This is like football in a pool, soccer, rugby. It's like so many sports all when they're tackling each other. The aerobic fitness of these athletes. Like when I watch these athletic events during the Olympics, I just feel like I'm a slug. Because I mean, you see the muscles in these athletes, you see the endurance. I mean, the amount of time I watched rugby sevens yesterday, the championship game. It was France against Fiji. For one thing, I was shocked at how short that game was. I think it was like 2 halves, and I think each half was like 10 minutes or less. It was really quick because I was watching it while I was walking on the treadmill. It was astonishingly short. And one thing I noticed was like during the national anthems before the game started, I was rooting for Fiji because there were like guys from Fiji that were crying before the game started when they played their national anthem pregame. They showed a couple guys from Fiji and they were crying when they heard their national anthem. I'm like, that is national pride. I love this. They are so invested in their country. They want to win it so bad for their country. Like I was like, I'm in for Fiji because these guys were like, you can see tears coming down their eyes, like down their cheeks because they wanted it so bad for their country. And it's like a little island nation. I'm sure they're super invested. So, and they were the 3-time national champ or defending champs. So I was like, I'll go for Fiji. Seems like it'd be an upset. They're going against the host country. They lost, of course, because they got the Rawman curse. Because if I root for you, you usually lose. I'm terrible like that. You'd never want me to root for your team. France whomped their butts, I think 28-7. I don't know how the scoring goes, but that's how it ended up. But it was intense. I mean, the game, rugby, I don't know how rugby sevens works, but I mean, I watched it and I loved it. Like it was an intense game. But that's what I love about the Olympics is like I was drawn in for like 5 minutes in. I was like, God, this game's awesome. And it was just so fun to watch something that is new. And I love that, as much as I love football, like I love all the nuances of college football and high school football. I live it, it's what I love, but sport is so much more than the sport, and the sport that you're so invested in. It's seeing it from a different perspective, seeing different sports and seeing how, these sports from around the world. I watched cycling yesterday, time trials. It was one person on the course against themselves. It was one person against the clock in rain, riding for over 30 minutes. So taking a corner here, taking a corner there was going to make such a huge difference in their time. It was awesome because it's all mental, right? You're constantly, oh God, did I make that corner as good as I could have 5 minutes ago? Because that's going to cost me. People were changing bicycles. And the crowds out there in the rain. It's just beach volleyball. It's 2 people working together, but I mean, it's a team sport, but it's only 2 people, and you got to pull your weight equally. I just love the dynamics. You have, I don't know how many people are on this water polo team, 12 people. You have 2 people on that team. A lot of sports are individuals. It's an amazing thing. And you got to think about collaboratively. There's over 500 people on Team USA pulling together in the same way. It's a neat dynamic. That's why I love the Olympics. They come around every 4 years. So it's super special. Every 2 years, if you count winter, summer, but it is a neat thing. So you got to embrace it while it's here. Then it's gone. Forget all the other stuff. I like watching the athletes. The athletes give everything they have. And I don't just root for the Americans. I'm always going to root for the Americans to win. But I like seeing just the joy of the athletes from every nation because I think they always give their best and they always want to represent where they're from. So I just love the pure sport of it all. And right now I'm watching water polo as we're recording the show. Not really. I don't know the strategies of it, but I just know there's no way as somebody who can barely swim that I could ever do this. And I would never want to be the goalie. The goalie seems like he or she is the least, like they're left out to dry. They got this big goal. They have to paddle water and then they got to try to jump flail and keep that ball out. No, thank you. That seems like the least position I'd ever want to be. Anyway, let's hit the feed. Oh, yeah. I want to talk to you about what's going on here at the BOGP Podcast Studios real quick. This week, I will tell you the difference between now and then. Okay, this week and now and then. When I was back in the Stone Age, when I was in school, I was a baseball player, right? I've told you that a million times. And in the summer, we'd always have camp, right, for baseball. So we'd have baseball camp every summer for 2 weeks. And that was like it's where the coaches, we'd have people that were, I mean, the baseball team had to be there. If you were expected to be on the team, you had to be at baseball camp. That was kind of they couldn't tell you this, but it was an unwritten rule. but also people that wanted to be on the team would sign up for baseball camp. So we'd have like 80 or 90 people at baseball camp. But the core of the team would be there, and the coach. This is a way the coaches could coach you during the summer, but they weren't allowed to coach you during the summer. But they would also have people there, it was like an instructional thing. And it would last like from 8 to 5 for 2 weeks during the summer's baseball camp. And all it was you went up and you basically batting cages, pitched as a pitcher. You pitched, you ran the bases, you talked strategy, you took ground balls, you took fly balls. It was just it was basically practice all day for 2 weeks in the summer. And that was it. And you went home. So Howell had their cheerleading camp for their cheerleaders this past week, but it's only 3 days. Now, normally the cheerleaders go away to camp. They go away to a university. Last year they went to Southeast Missouri State, which is about 3 hours away. They go down there with a bunch of other teams and they compete against other teams. Like on the last day, they learn this routine by NCAA. It's a big deal. And that's kind of how the cheerleading camp works for cheerleaders. You go away to a big college, you learn all these routines from these instructors. It's a big deal. The last day, there's like a big spirit competition. You learn your routines throughout the camp and you compete against each other. This year, we decided to do something different. We brought the instructors from NCAA to our high school. So we did an at-home camp. And so these instructors came to our high school and they had this intense camp at our high school for the last 3 days. And I just got to say, these girls are well taken care of because as we just went out on a dirty baseball field for 2 weeks in the heat of the summer, by the way, it was always in July for like, what did I say, 8 to 5? So like for 8 hours a day. And we ran. I mean, we were out there, man, it was like survival. If you ever played football when you were older and you did like 2 a days, this was like that for baseball players. Probably wasn't as rough, but it was rough. These cheerleaders, let me just tell you, because my wife is she's executive board for the booster club for the cheerleaders. So she was in charge of all this. They were well taken care of. Let me just tell you, they had catered, because they got their meals taken care of. They had catered Chick-fil-A. They had catered Chipotle. They had catered Good Sense subs. At the end of camp yesterday, they had Bahama Bucks snow cones or whatever those are. They're like it's like a snow cone bar. They had, they always were fed throughout the camp. They had goodie bags when they got there with treats. So they had water bottles and everything they could need for hydration. They had little gifts and things to wear. It's so funny how times have changed from 2024 to back when I was in school. Just gonna say, they every time they had breakfast and lunch, they had meals taken care of. They also Friday night had a movie in the gym with dominoes, and they watched Bring It On, the cheerleader movie, with like I said, dominoes and sodas and stuff. After that day was over, it was pretty wild. So just it just cracks me. Not that they don't deserve it. I'm glad that they're having a great time and they had their, they put in work. Don't get me wrong. They put in a ton of work, but like our coaches, we put in work back in the day, and that was just like, see ya, go get a vest soda, get some Taco Bell on the way home, I guess. I just wish we'd had it as good as they did. And I hope they appreciate how good they have it, and they deserve it, but I wish they knew how good they had it. All right, so let's get to the feedback from last week's show. We were kind of all over the place, and Dennis says, Mike, I know the feeling you're talking about when you approach the last few days or end of your cruise. You can spend a year more looking forward to your vacation. Then the day finally arrives and you board the ship. You have a week ahead of you full of fun, great food, and great service. Then suddenly it is day 5 or 6, and you have to start considering when you're going to start to pack, so you have your luggage out on that last night. This is why I always try to have the next cruise booked before I get off my current cruise. That is why I start to get the anticipation cycle all over again. That is absolutely right, Dennis. I think I mentioned last week, like as soon as we started to go north out of St. Thomas, I got that pit in my stomach that, and we still had Castaway Key to go. We still had our sea day to go, but I just felt it. We're heading north. It's not good. But yeah, I knew the podcast cruise was coming this next summer, which is going to be amazing. but I just don't want the current one to ever end. Like, I just don't want to go home. I just don't want to, as much as I have the best life. I mean, you guys know that. I talk about it all the time. I have a better life than I ever deserve. I get to work from home. I get to do a podcast. I get to book travel. Like, if you would have told 12-year-old Mike Rallman like what I get to do when I'm 50, there's no way that I could have believed I mean, I have a podcast studio. Like, this is not real. I mean, I am so lucky, but I mean, when I'm on a cruise ship, I'm just like, I don't want to get off a cruise ship. Like, it's the best. I mean, I'm with my wife and my daughters. It doesn't get any better in my world than that. So I just don't want to ever let that part of my life in. So yeah, I get what you're saying. But I mean, it's 350 days or so. So I'm back on the Disney Magic, and I haven't been on that ship since 1998. So I'm super pumped for that. Good point there. All right. Trisha says, as I was listening to the episode, I had to wash dishes. What you were saying really resonated in that moment. I'm so appreciative of vacations and service personnel. I love the break from dishes and laundry. I also think the Caribbean, Central America have a different way of living. People in Costa Rica generally didn't have much, but they were so welcoming and took pride in their work. My friend who introduced me to my husband back in college was a Boy Scout and won a raffle to run with the Olympic torch as a kid. My first date with my husband was a double date where we watched the opening ceremonies years ago. Our friend kept shushing us when we were trying to talk during the ceremony. I'm familiar with sports injuries, broke my nose as a soccer goalie. Thankfully, the giant rec specs I had to wear in order to see saved me from a crooked nose. Yes, sport injuries are real. Yes, you get past them, but sometimes they leave permanent marks, as my teeth have been permanently changed from hockey sticks and ankles and all kinds of stuff. My ankles are messed up from hockey or speed skating. So yeah. So Trisha, great story. And yeah, sports, but sports in general are the best. I mean, I wouldn't trade a thing. So that was last week. Now you're gonna like this story too this week that I want to talk about, Trisha, because I think you're gonna like this. I noted in my Google Notes, I use Google Keep, which is my free little Google note taking app, that I left a note during, it was like day 6 of our Disney cruise. And all it said was, "Good morning, comma, Mr. Mike." And I put that because I wanted to use that as a Mike in the Midwest episode. And I didn't get to it till today. And I wanted to talk about this, and it's almost exactly what Trisha was just saying. We had a room steward on our Disney cruise just a few weeks ago. And I'm still thinking about this guy. I am still thinking about him. His name was like Naomi. He was from India, and his name was like Naomi or something like Naomi. He never really pronounced it to us. I didn't get it. Naomi, I think is what his name was. And he was a shorter gentleman, older gentleman. And what I wanted, I had to tell you guys about him. First of all, if you've ever been on a Disney cruise, and I think this is true of everybody, right? Is that your room steward is pretty amazing. And Scott and I have talked about this many times. A lot of times your room steward will be like a ninja. Many times you won't see him or her. They will maybe greet you on your embarkation day, and they'll introduce you, or they'll introduce themselves to you, and they'll ask if you have any special celebrations, any special requests for your room. How would you like your room laid out? If you have kids, do you need a diaper genie? Do you need anything like that? They just want to make sure that they know how they can help you best have a great cruise. But then a lot of times they're like in and out and you never see them. But on a 7-night cruise, shout out to Jody and the Bennings who are headed to Alaska tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday. It's the Alaska runs. They're up in Vancouver right now. Excited for them. And so they're going to be in this situation with their room steward. They're going to probably see their room steward a lot. A 7-night cruise, you see them more because you're in and out of your room a lot more because you have sea days. But here's the thing. This gentleman, I'm a tall guy, right? 6'3". He was very short. He might not even have been 5 foot tall. Every morning And every time I saw him, and I saw him many times in the hall. He wasn't just cleaning our stateroom. He would clean he was in charge of a lot of staterooms throughout our hallway, right? He would have maybe, I don't know how many staterooms they clean, 5, 10. I don't know how many they do. But no matter what he was doing, even if he was in another stateroom, like in deep into that stateroom with the door open, if he would see me passing in the hall, he'd say, "Good afternoon, Mr. Mike." Or "Good evening, Mr. Mike." If I was running back to the room because I was coming back from the tube to grab something, a hat or to change shoes or something, he always said, "Good evening, Mr. Mike. Good morning, Mr. Mike," with the biggest smile on his face. Like we were friends from elementary school. And let me just tell you something. It's still sticking with me. We went on this cruise July 6th to the 13th. It's July 28th, ladies and gentlemen. And this guy is doing a job where he makes beds. He changes out dirty, trash bins. He cleans toilets. He changes out the soap in the shower. He does that stuff. He does the stuff that just a second ago Trisha said, and I couldn't agree more with what Trisha said. He does the stuff that we are just dying to escape from in our everyday lives. And I know he's getting paid for that. That's his job, right? He's getting paid for that. And we're tipping him, right? We're giving him a gratuity at the end. But the thing is, he is so gracious and so kind. And I don't know if I don't think it's an act. He was so genuinely excited every time he saw me come down the hall and took the time. He would stop when he was in another stateroom if he was making a bed. "Good evening, Mr. Rahman. You headed to the tube?" Because he knew that I liked the tube. I'd always tell him, "Headed to the tube," or "You know what? Got to go down to going to see the show." I'd always tell him where I was headed. I don't know why I told him. Like I felt like it was like a parent or something. Like I was probably older than he was, or probably about the same age, honestly, if I had to guess. But I'd always tell him where I was headed. I don't know why I did that. Now that I think about it, I never thought about it till just now. But he would always be like, "Are you going to see the show, Mr. Mike?" And he'd always call me Mr. Mike. And it was like a sign of respect. He didn't need to do that. I mean, the thing was, it was a sign of respect. And it was a kindness thing. The thing is, again, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, this gentleman has a job that many of us would not want to do. And he could have done his job just as well, putting his head down to make that bed, especially when he was deep into a stateroom 3 doors down from mine. He's still doing his job super well. He's cleaning the restroom. He's making the bed, and those beds are so tight and they're so nice. They sleep so well. The staterooms, like you come back at night and the stateroom looks totally different than it did in the afternoon. Like it's been made over. You got your blankets turned into a stingray and it's got chocolate now. And, especially if you have kids, all of a sudden the bed's out of the ceiling and you get the ladders out, and everything's, he even did our wires on all of our electronics. They got ties on them now and everything's neat. The wires have never been that neat for the girls. The girls' wires are everywhere all the time. It's always a big mess. Nope. He straightened all that up. Even the joy that he had on top of how well he did his job has just stuck with me. And he always had a smile, and he would always stop what he was doing to greet me. He would shake my hand many times. He would just come and he would shake, and it was like a two-handed handshake too. He would shake my hand, and with his other hand, he would grasp my hand. And I don't know why that is sticking with me so much 2 or 3 weeks later, but I'm thinking about it. Why was he my room steward? And why did I come across this gentleman, and why am I still thinking about this? And how can I use my interaction with this gentleman to maybe make myself a little bit better person? So when I interact with other people, do my words matter? Like with when I meet somebody at the grocery store, if I go to the grocery store today, or when I go to Jimmy John's to get a wrap this afternoon, or because you guys know I'll have Taco Bell tonight when I do the live show. My brief interaction with the person as I yell through the not yell, but as I order through the voice box in the drive-through as I have Riley in the Jeep is how I make my order going to impact the person who's working that cash register inside. Is the way I place my order going to make that person's day better or worse? Maybe, maybe not. But can it possibly? Maybe. Probably not. I mean, it probably won't have an impact, but it could. If I'm rude, if I'm pleasing and thank you, those things go a long way. That person's probably not having the best day. I mean, I'm sure not everybody's going to be patient and kind to the person, but it can't hurt, right? It made me think, because I'm still thinking about how well that person treated me. And that person had a job that I really don't want. I'll be honest, I don't like to make the bed here at the house. Pam does that most of the time. I'll be honest, I'm terrible at it. When I do, the sheets come off. I mean, it's just she does it because she does it better. And I've thought about this. There's other people in my life. We had a janitor at a custodian at the elementary school where I first taught. His name was Mr. D, and he passed away many, many years ago. This gentleman, skinny as a board. But he was always around. He was he was as much of Wedgwood Elementary School as the library, or as, he was a part of the building. Like Mr. D, he was our custodian. And you would go in the morning, he'd be like, Mr. Rahman, how's the day going? With this smile, this big smile. He's this African-American skinny guy, and just would smile, and that smile would just light you up. And like, I was this, 27-year-old teacher, didn't know what was going on, but he'd say, Mr. Rahman, how's it going? And I'm like, I'm 27 years old. I'm not Mr. Rahman. That's my grandpa. Like, I'm Mike, but he always called me Mr. Rahman. This guy was like 60. I'm like, no, you're Mr. D, because and I always try to tell the kids, you got to respect Mr. D. Mr. D has more life experience and more knowledge than Like, Mr. D knows what's going on. Because some of these kids would try to, again, sixth graders in an elementary school, trying to think they're so cool. No. Not the Mr. D. Mr. D's cool. You just don't know it. Because it's just, I think that sometimes we get these super special people that just leave marks on us. And this gentleman on the cruise, he did his job so outstandingly well, but it wasn't the job he did. He was the best room steward I ever had. The room was never less than perfect. Never less than perfect. But the thing he left me with was the smile, was the kindness, was the good morning, Mr. Mike. Because it wasn't Mr. Rahman either. And I don't know, you know what? The Mr. Mike was better than the Mr. Rahman. I appreciated that. It just made me feel like we had something, like we were friends. Like, we were friends for 7 days. I wonder what he's doing today. I mean, I'm sure he's doing his job really well in the Disney Fantasy in the Southern Caribbean right now. But he left a mark. And I think as a person, isn't that the best thing you could ever do? I don't know what else you could ever do. Like, when this podcast is long gone, the Be Our Guest podcast will have its day where it ends. I mean, I don't want it to, but it will. Everything does. I hope that someday somebody says that this podcast did something positive, and that it leaves a mark for somebody, that someday, 10 days after the last show, somebody be like, remember there was this show that did make me happy for a moment. That's because he did that for me, and I'll remember that. I will remember that. I remember Mr. D. He's been gone for a long time, but I'll never forget Mr. D, back at Wedgwood Elementary. So maybe today, a couple things. Think about those people that maybe, if it was a story, they'd be minor characters, right? If it was a movie or a book, they might be labeled as minor characters, but maybe they're not. And then on the other side of that, think about how maybe just a couple of words with interactions with you have with people in your life. And I'm not talking about maybe family members, maybe just people that you interact with in a brief moment, how you can make their day just a little bit better. People at the store, people at the gas station, people at a restaurant. I mean, you guys are all awesome. I mean, you're here. You make my dream possible. I know you're awesome people. I mean, I get it. But I'm going to consciously try to really do that this week. So if we all do that, just think how we could really make the world awesome. So just a thought, just Mike in the Midwest this week. We'll get back together again next week. All right. Until then, we have our live show tonight. Scotty G is going to join me, and we are going to have a good time taking your calls. We'll talk about those Olympic events that you guys can come up with. This should be Olympic events from Walt Disney World. We had fun on Friday doing that show. So let's keep it going tonight. So until then, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.